Our next unit looks at equations. So solving equations using a combination of variables, coefficients, constants, and so on. So we looked at creating equations and simplifying like terms in our previous unit. We're going to take that information and we're going to take it a little bit step further. So one thing you need to know in order to be successful in this unit is to think about checking solutions in equations. So before we start to think about solving equations, I'm going to show you a strategy that you can use throughout the rest of the unit so that you can make sure that your answers are correct. And I think that's going to be very important because that way you can check at home whether you are doing your questions correctly for IXL, for Knowledge Hook, or even for the online test or assignments if that's what we happen to have. So a solution to an equation is a value that satisfies the equation. So it's the value for the letter. So if you were to solve that equation, you're finding a number that if I replace that letter with that number, the equation will be true. So that means if I substitute the value into the equation, the answer on the left side of the equation, so the left side of the equal sign, is going to be the same as the answer on the right side of the equation, or the right side of the equal sign. So let's go through a couple of quick examples. So for example A, we have the equation 2x minus 4 is equal to 12. And it says that the value for x is 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate this equation by looking at what happens on the left side of my equation and what happens on the right side of my equation. So the left side of the equal sign and the right side of the equal sign. So that's how we split that up. So we split it up on either side of the equal sign. So the left side of my equation is 2x minus 4. And the right side of my equation is 12. So sometimes you'll have to do calculations on both sides, and sometimes, like this one here, we only have a numerical value on the right side. So I don't have to do anything further for the right side. So what we do have to do for the left side is we have to substitute this value, 8, in for the value of x in my equation. So I'm going to have 2 times 8 minus 4. And so sometimes teachers will write an equal sign going down. Sometimes they won't. I'm not going to be too picky right now. If you want to put those equal signs along the side, you can. If you want to leave them out, that's fine as well. So 2 times 8 is 16. And 16 take away 4 is 12. And so the left side equals the right side. So that's the goal. So if you want the number on the left side of the equation to be the same as the number on the right side of your equation. So now we can say with certainty, so because the left side equals the right side, and therefore x is equal to 8. And this is going to be a good concluding statement as we move forward with our solving equations unit. So get in the habit of writing that now for those left side, right side checks so that it becomes second nature when we move forward. So now what we want to do for part B, example B, is to not only use what we know about substitution, which we looked at early in the course, which we applied to the left side of my equation in part A, but I also want to use the distributive property. So that's something that we looked at in our last unit. So my equation is 3 times x minus 2 is equal to negative 12. So on the left side of my equation, I have 3 times x minus 2. And on the right side of my equation, I have negative 12. So that's what I do first. And now I want to substitute the value of x into my equation, wherever it happens to be. If it's on only the left side, then I put it in on only the left side. If it happens to be on both the left and the right side, like in example C, then you put it on both sides. So I'm going to substitute the value negative 3 into the place of x. So I have 3 times negative 3 take away 2. So now I want to simplify what's inside of my brackets. So in doing that, I don't have to actually do my distributive property. You could do the distributive property first and then substitute in your value for x. That's perfectly fine as well. But this is a way to avoid doing that distributive property if that was something that caused you grief in that last unit. So 3, and then I'm simplifying this. So -3 take away 2 is -5. And 3 times -5 is -15. So you'll notice, hey, that didn't work out so well. So because the left side doesn't equal the right side, so I can say the left side does not equal the right side. And because it doesn't equal, that means the value for x that I was given or that I determined does not equal -3. So that equal sign with a line through it means doesn't equal. So the left side doesn't equal the right side. So the value of x equals -3 doesn't work for this equation. And so if you get, when you're moving forward in this unit, if you end up getting a left side, right side that doesn't equally themselves, then you know you've made a mistake somewhere when you were solving your equation. And that'll trigger you to go back and look at your solution to see if you made a mistake, whether you made a calculation error, whether you made a sign error, or whether maybe you didn't apply the distributive property correctly. Lots of things to look at. So sometimes it will be the correct solution, and if it is, then that's good. You know you've done everything correct. And sometimes it's not, and that's okay if it's not, because then that means you can go back and fix that work before you submit it for an assignment or a test or practice questions. So now let's take a look at example C and D. So again, I'm going to look at what I have on the left side of my equation versus what I have on the right side of my equation. So on the left side of my equal sign, I have 3k take away 2. And on the right side of my equal sign, I have 2k plus 4. And I want to see whether k is equal to 4. So if I substitute the value of k, 4, into those letters, into the variables in my equations, will the left side equal the right side? If it does, then I know that k does equal 4, and if it doesn't, then I know I've made a mistake. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to enter in 3 and then times 4, subtract 2 on the left side. 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 take away 2 is 10. So my goal for the right side is for it to equal 10, and it might or it might not. So let's go ahead and check that out. So I'm going to have 2 times 4 and then plus 4. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 4 is 12. So I know from these calculations that the left side does not equal the right side. So the left side does not equal the right side. So therefore, k does not equal 4. And the last example, on the left side of my equation, I have 2 and then n minus 4. On the right side of my equation, I have 5 and then times n plus 2. And I want to substitute the value of -6, into my letters n. Now, just to review some of that distributive property, I'm going to apply the distributive property first before I substitute in my value, just so we can practice those skills. So 2 times n and then 2 times -4. So 2 times n is 2n, and 2 times -4 is -8. And now I'm going to substitute in my value for -6. As I said, you can simply substitute it in like we did in part B, example B. You can plug in that value right away for your letter, or you can apply the distributive property first. So then I'm going to have 2 times -6, take away 8. 2 times -6 is -12. And -12 take away 8 is -20. So let's just substitute in the value for n here. So you can apply the distributive property like I showed you on the left side first and then substitute in the value, or you can substitute in the value right away. So I want to show you both methods so that you know that one way is not wrong, whatever way you want to. So if you struggled with distributive property, you may want to practice some of those ones. So I'm going to do 5, and then my value for n is -6, and then +2. So I'm going to simplify what's inside of my bracket. -6 plus 2 is -4, and 5 times -4 is -20. So look at that, our left side equals our right side. Therefore, n is equal to -6. So those are just some quick preliminary information for you to get started when we're looking at solving equations. So to verify your answers, you do the left side, right side check. If both sides are the same value, then you know you've done your questions correctly. If they're not, then you know you've made a mistake, so you got to go back and fix something. So I want you to practice doing your left side, right side checks for this lesson, and that way you have that in the back of your mind ready to go so you can get started when we're looking at solving equations.